All right, we're live. We're
Oh
live.
yeah.
Yeah, no countdown today.
We are live.
No countdown. What's going on, everybody?
Hello,
in the
everyone.
house.
FOMO's in here. Oh, that's always good to see. What's up, FOMO? Hey,
We got that
FOMO. My wife is here. What's up? Tim is in the house. Reverend Slim is in the house. Everyday J, Kamish, Jed. What's up to all you folks out there?
Is it
What's up?
Comish or
Kamish?
Commish.
I don't know.
The commissioner.
Yeah.
Oh,
There used to be a show called The Commish. A long
okay.
time. I wonder if anybody remembers that, like in the 90s, early mid 90s. It had the dude, I can't think of his name now, but he played Thing in the first Fantastic Four.
Ealan, what's up,
movies.
buddy? Let's check your audio.
Let's see.
Test.
Ah, much better.
I think it's better.
Much
It was
better.
crackly
Okay.
earlier.
It was
So we had to
just
give
a
him the
bad
boot?
connection, I guess.
I said, hey, I want to. Where's your? What mic do you usually use? Like a Audio Technica or something? Because you sound awesome in your videos.
Sennheiser MKE 600.
Oh, some big boy mics.
Yeah.
No wonder it sounded so
boom,
good.
Mike.
No wonder you sounded so good. I see.
Yeah.
I'm using a
Maybe-
416 right now.
I'm using,
nice.
I don't even know what I'm using.
You know,
I don't know what
You-
model mine is.
you're using a.
Mine's a-
Shure?
No, mine's a.
Sennheiser?
No, it's the same one
guessing.
y'all use. My mind just went blank. The
Same ones that we use.
the same brand, but it's not the same model.
Are you
Sure.
Oh, y'all use the Shure?
Mhm.
Well,
They do.
Gosh,
I have
my
the-
mind. I'm sorry.
Got the
have-
Roadcaster.
Let me see here. Mine's an Audio Technica, but I can't remember the model number.
Oh, okay.
I'm about to look it up real fast. I love this thing, man. It took me forever to find a mic that I actually liked. And when I
Yeah.
finally I got this one, I was like, "Ooh, this is killed." But it was expensive. It was like $500.
Yeah, you got to find something that your voice sounds
Whoa.
good on, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
this one's a
and
little
I've
too
got-
bright for me, honestly.
Right. So I've got the DBX. Was it the preamplifier? So it's got a compressor, a de-esser, a noise gate built into it. So once I got all that set up, dude, I love it.
Man, you're all
I got-
fancy and stuff.
I
I just
got
got a
stuff
little.
with
Oh,
big
and it runs into a
Alright.
Motu M2.
Yeah, I got
Dude,
two
I
of
ain't
those.
playing
now.
around over here.
I love
Yeah,
that
because
thing.
everybody was like, "You're an audio channel and you have horrible audio." I was like, "Well, guess I gotta
Ooh,
fix
we've
that."
had that before.
Oh yeah.
Joe will call you
Oh.
out if you have bad audio and you're
Okay,
an audio.
mine is
I
a
got-
AT4053B hypercardioid condenser mic.
Yeah, I would leave it up to you to probably find like the optimal one for the. You know what? I'm gonna be here. I'm trying to reduce the reflections here. I'm just like, what's the popular one? Okay, that MKH416 and the Shure SM7B. Done.
Oh man,
And
this
you'd
mic
be
is
like, "What's the cheap
this
one?"
mic
And
is
Sean's like,
$700 now.
700. What's happening?
Yeah, dude, I didn't pay this much when I bought it. I think I paid like $5.
that's
That's
crazy.
insane. But I love this mic. I
Yeah.
bought an AT897. I bought a Shure. I bought a couple different Shure microphones. Could never find
You
one I
sure?
liked. Then when I landed on this one, I was like, "That's it." Anyway,
Yeah, so that's our mic setup. If you're
yeah,
ever wondering.
there we go.
Well,
Ealan, dude,
Chris.
I want to hear your next time because I do want to have you on, more often. You know what I mean? You're doing some cool stuff,
next
and the voice
time-
is awesome on the video. So I want to hear that.
He's chilling in his bedroom. Looks
I
like
know he's chilling right
hanging
now.
out.
He's relaxing.
Yeah. This was. I did a lot of errands.
Yeah,
You did?
in the
I don't remember
afternoon,
that.
and I didn't even have
Oh, you said air ends. Okay.
with a D on the end. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was running like a crazy. I had to go pick up my girls, then we had to go to the grocery store, and then I came home and slammed some food down my gullet and hopped on. So sorry,
Yeah.
it's not my professional.
yeah. Well, the
studio.
AirPods can't handle the AirPods can't handle the bass. You know what I mean?
No,
They're trying. They're trying, but they sound good for what they are. But anyway.
Yeah.
I like it.
Anyway,
They come through in a
yeah.
pinch.
Yes, it's the best actually. Those are the best that I've found for
I love them, man.
like wireless stuff. Nothing's even close. So
And I bought some memory foam tips for them that were like $20 that are
Ooh.
they never come out. Like I run with them, I ride my bike with them. They never come out. I've had them for over a year and they still haven't like gotten to the point where they will fall out. Much better than the OEM
wow.
tips. I even did a review on them because I was like, you got to buy these.
What is
If
the
you
what
have
is
the
the brand
headphones,
of
you got to
those?
buy them.
What are the brand
I think
of
it's
those?
the Comply.
That's what I
I'll-
figured. Yeah,
I'll
I
look
have
it
some
up
of
real
those.
fast.
Man,
Yeah.
those they hold on to earwax though.
They do. Yes. Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is the truth. They're black, and then that's what
Aaron
it
just
is.
snacks on them after he gets hungry riding a bike.
Well, no, I take it out and I look at it and I'm like, well, this is thicker right here, so this is probably where all the high frequencies died.
Hey, did you
then I'll
guys
take a
know
bite of it.
random? I guess in Asia and Japan, somebody told me that they have black Q-tips so that they can see what's. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They can see
Oh,
what's happening. I mean, so whatever.
that's smart.
It's audio related, isn't it? Ear related.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So Ealan, dude, you've been killing it. I invited you because you're just doing an awesome job with your videos, and
Thank you.
yeah, I enjoy watching your videos, and that's not a lot of people. A lot of times when you're reviewing audio stuff, you just get tired of watching other audio stuff, I guess. You know what I mean? You're immersed in it, so it's very rare. Like I pick and choose. I have a few guys that I'll choose to watch. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And
So kind
just
of
in
like
case
being
I
a
don't-
comedian's comedian. Am I a YouTuber's YouTuber?
I think so.
There you go.
I think so because I appreciate what you're doing. Like I can see all the extra stuff that you do, and I don't know if everybody notices. Maybe they just enjoy it, but to me, I see it. I'm like, that took extra time. I know I've said it before, but I can
Yeah.
I can tell. I appreciate it.
Thanks. It does take extra time, but
Mhm.
I can't help myself.
Dude, I
think it's
watched.
cool when everybody uses like their personality in their video. You know what I'm saying? And like that's one way that you express your creativity through that. So super cool.
Yeah, I have to.
What you call it?
That's not an affiliate link, by the way, too.
Okay.
I didn't do that,
Okay.
although I wanted to.
You
So
showed me.
yeah, it's funny because I told Ealan this morning, I'm like, I watched one of his videos and then mine kind of like one of mine auto played afterwards, and then after hearing his, and then hearing mine because I wasn't really watching, I was doing some other stuff too. I'm like, oh man, I need to step up my game. This guy's all polished and professional, and I'm over here just shooting from the hip. But I guess that's a difference though, right? I think that's more my style. When I try to do it all polished, people didn't seem to like it.
Yeah, I have that same issue. So, Ealan, do you do scripted?
I do.
You-
Yeah.
Okay. I tried it. I think
Most
we've
of
had
the
this
time.
conversation before. I try to do it. It's harder for me to do it. It's just easier for me just to. But I'll always forget something inevitably. That's the one downside of not
That's
doing
the hard
scripted.
part.
is
Yeah.
There's always something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I have to script or else I'll forget.
Yeah.
The
I
last
get it.
one I did though, going over all the 9-channel receivers available right now, that was just kind of off the cuff because it was me going back and forth between talking at the camera and looking up stuff online. So I
Yeah.
didn't
Were those
script that one
were
out.
those affiliate links on there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you got to do it once in a while. You got to do that once in a
Of
while. I
course.
kind of,
Of course.
I was just
Around
joking.
this
Like,
time of year, definitely.
hey, that's what it is.
You know what though? I find that like my audience reacts very positively as long as I just say, "Look,
Right. You just gotta
here's
let
this thing that's on sale. Here's an affiliate link if you want to help out the channel. Otherwise, just Google it." And
Right.
like
Yeah.
I've never had anybody say anything negative. Just because,
Sure.
as long as you're honest, people are like,
That's
"Cool,"
right.
you know.
Yeah, they get it.
Exactly.
I posted just for what it's worth. I posted a link to. So I did a shootout of 12-inch subwoofers it was a year ago, and
Mhm.
on that list was a Jamo C912 subwoofer, and it was pretty good. It wasn't the greatest, but for the price, it was pretty good. It was like $250 regular price. And somebody had replied to my video like last weekend and said, or the weekend before last, and said that it was on sale for $180. So I was like, cool. Then I checked it the next day and it was 153. I was like, well, crap. So I posted it on my YouTube community page, and I think nearly 20 people bought one. Like they were just snapping them up, dude. So it's crazy, but not as I expected. People
Wow.
were gonna be like, "Oh, you're just doing it," well, people. But no, man, it was all positive. Like some dude was like, "I bought 4 of them." I was like, "Holy crap, dude!" So, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, it's just funny. You're like, yeah, affiliate links, right? I'm all, yeah.
Correct.
You have to do. Like I'm saying, sometimes those reviews that we're talking about that you spend all the time on, they don't often get the most views. We talked about that, Ealan, on the phone.
Yeah,
You
for
spend
sure.
all this time, and it might not even be the hit video,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
It could be someone where you're just talking. You're just talking about something you found out.
No
And
B-roll.
the more I think about it, I think one of the reasons people watch us is just because we've reviewed so many speakers. They want a shortcut, right? It's like, all right, you review speakers, you've checked a bunch of them out. Like, what's the best one? Like, I don't. That's why the best works, right? Best works because they don't want to look at all the details. They just like, okay, this is what you do. Can you just tell me? Give me a shortcut. What's the best? You know. So
Right.
it's kind of funny that that's what works, but it makes sense.
That's funny.
All right.
That is true. Yeah, I looked at the stats for the Ealan DB62 speaker. I was just curious, and it's got like maybe 6,000 or 7,000 views on it. It's made like $22 or $23, which you guys know that once the initial few days are over, that's pretty much it. You're not going to make any more money on it. So it's going to
like
cap
a
out at
viral
like,
video. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
right. So
man.
it's going to cap at like maybe $25. And I bought those speakers, which means I spent $300 on myself, plus the 8 to 10 hours that I have in reviewing them.
Sure.
You know,
And
I mean,
time.
it takes. I mean,
$23, man.
So if just round it up to $24 and say that you spent 8 hours, you paid yourself $3. I paid myself $3 an hour.
Yeah.
To review that, and that's not even accounting for the $300 that I spent to buy the speakers, and then
at least
sold
you're
them at
good
a loss.
Though.
Right? Yeah. I'm good at myself. Yeah.
You take care of yourself.
I take care of myself. Yeah. That's right. I take myself out on inexpensive dates.
So, what is? Oh, thank you, by the way, Optimus, for the super chat. I see you. Good to see you. Hope everyone is doing well. Go and vote tomorrow. Yes. All right. So I have a question for you, Ealan. Review question. If you don't mind me putting you on the spot here.
Go for it.
So, what biases do you have? Because a lot of times people, when they're reviewing stuff or when people are watching reviews, they're always like, "Oh, you're biased towards this," and I'm like, to me, the way I figure is like I'm a human. Like I do have certain biases, right? I like certain things. Liking something is a bias, right? It's subjective. Yeah. So I just try to be honest with myself first and with my audience. Like this is a bias that I have and this affects things. And if you want to watch the video, that's good. If you don't, that's okay too. Just want to let you know up front. You decide, so is there anything like that you feel like is a bias? Like for me, it would be, I like speakers with bass and deep bass extension. Like if it has those things and it's relatively neutral, I'm kind of like, I like that speaker better than another one that's more perfect, but I let people know. Anything like that for you?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, I know soundbars are the rage right now just because of how easy they are to hook up. As far as just like your average consumer who probably has never dealt with home theater before, a soundbar is probably what they're going to go for to just be an introduction to home theater in general. Mm-hmm. But like the various soundbars that I have tested, I'm just so team receiver, preamp, external amp, whatever.
Anything but.
Yeah, like it's really hard for me to be super enthusiastic about a soundbar system because I know personally that it's probably not going to live up to just having a good old-fashioned receiver and wired speakers. So that's probably my biggest vice. If some company reaches out to me and says, "Hey, can you review our soundbar?" Like the latest soundbar I did like a month or two ago was the new Sony A3000. And I mean, they sent me the smaller sub, the SW3, and then they sent me the smaller surrounds. And I mean, they did a pretty good job for what they're worth, but at the same time, they are pretty darn expensive for what they do.
Right.
So it was kind of, I really love Sony. I want to get my hands on the HT-A9 at some point because several comments have been asking for me to review that, just
Mm.
what my take on it is. So I'd love to review that, but they're
I've
just so
reviewed those.
popular right now.
Yeah.
Like you just can't get them. Like Sony was like, we just don't have enough to be able to send out to people just to review and then have them send them back.
Well, I've reviewed them thanks to this guy here, Stop the FOMO. He lives close
Yeah.
by, so he was able to get those to me. And so I reviewed those a while back, but they've been out of stock for a long time. And he says the Samsung Q990B.
Yeah,
And so
that's their
Samsung
latest
is a what,
flagship.
Harman product, or I guess Harman is a Samsung product, right?
Mhm.
So I would believe that they would know how to tune that thing. I've never tried them, but I've heard good things about their sound bars.
$1,500.
Right.
$1,400 for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what is up with this? It's an 11.1.
Just the bar itself, though, right?
Come on, man.
Can you
What
pull
are
it
you
up?
trying-
I want to
what are
see
you
this. Let's give them a little bit of love here. Let's see what's going on here. If
I
we
thought it
were
was more
soundbar
like
shopping,
closer
this
to
is what it would look like.
2000.
So crazy. It's like, what are you guys smoking?
I've reviewed an LG that was like over $1,000, and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
Atmos,
No,
DTS.
that's true. I've
Rear-
reviewed one LG soundbar, and man, it was
It was
I
rough.
did not like it.
$1,400. That's crazy.
They do TVs really well, but when it comes to soundbars, they're
I mean,
lacking.
come on. Really?
Okay, Infinite Sound
I
with
know, right?
True 11.4. What does it say in the small? What does it say in the small print?
Let's see if
Yeah,
Not
shouldn't
really
true
immersive.
be in quotations?
because images are simulated. So in
Oh,
other
okay,
words,
okay.
this isn't real.
Okay.
Oh
okay.
man.
So
That's just-
okay, wireless Atmos, and so you know what? This is the
is
issue
marketing
that we've
at its
talked
finest.
about before with Atmos. Is like it's on here. It says Dolby Atmos, right? The person who's buying this probably like, if I'm shopping for soundbars, I should have Atmos.
Mhm.
And
Right?
see,
That's
my
probably
bias,
one of the criteria. So
my bias is I'm looking for how big is that subwoofer.
Mm.
I know, right?
You know, I want some decent bass. See all specs right here.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got 656 watts. Notice there's a question mark.
Easy AC Tech.
Question mark on it. That's even
11 channels. 11 channels.
I mean, come on.
How does that work? How
They
many?
They don't even tell you how big the subwoofer is.
Mm.
Oh
That ought
no,
to tell you something.
Yeah.
it's probably 6. Yeah, that was my guess.
That's a lot of specs for not a lot of information.
11 point. What is that even? Hold on. 11.1.4.
Yeah.
So you know that we've
Oh.
been messing
So
around
with-
with Atmos lately, and
Mhm.
I think 7.1.4 is like kind of the limit for home, like just generally like what's available, content that's available, stuff like that. Right?
So
Once
here's
you
a little
even
bit of-
higher up is 9.1.6. So having wides and top middles. This is saying 11?
Mhm.
What? How?
So a lot
What
of
does
them,
it do?
so you can see there's probably one here. There's several up firing. So that would be your 0.4. But then the
Okay.
11, I think, is all of this up front.
Oh, they're counting
Yeah.
all.
Side surrounds. That's your front wides, I guess, right here. And then you got probably
Okay,
5.
yeah, front wides. Those are probably like surrounds. I'm curious. Let's see.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find the picture. of.
How does
Maybe
this
they'll show?
How is it 11 channels? So
Now,
normally you get
of them are
left,
speakers in
center,
the back.
right. Right?
Yeah,
That's
you see,
3.
like there's one here, one here, one
Uh-huh.
there. So that's 3, 6,
Okay.
7, 8. So there's 8. Okay, and then 3 up front. 9, 10, 11. That's what it is. So you have LCR.
But it's
Okay.
3.
LCR.
3.
You gotta have like front wides, I guess.
Okay, wides.
So that's
Right.
5, and then the sides right here going out the sides. That's 7.
Okay, I don't know what that's supposed to be, but like let's just
No.
say surrounds.
I'm still missing some. Yeah, and then there's these two.
Surrounds, and then let's say rear surrounds. We're at
Yeah.
9.
Yeah, so there's probably another pair of speakers, like maybe right to like in between the left
I don't
and
understand.
the right. I don't know.
I
like
don't
I said,
understand. Okay.
Are they
It's pretty wonky, man.
are
There's
they
no,
counting radiators? I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really say. Of course, I mean, they're not going to show you what all's in there. I mean, they're probably 2 inches at best.
Okay.
I'm about to buy
Yeah.
one and just find out.
Ike says it has 2 wide surrounds and front wides. Okay, so 2 wide surrounds. All right, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's janky.
All right. Well, they better
Shows.
know their psychoacoustics to pull that off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From a sound bar, making it sound like that. I don't know. I mean, I wish it were true. You know, I wish it were true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
Sennheiser's new Ambio Max and Ambio Plus,
Mhm.
their claim to fame is that it's a soundbar that can pull off 7.1.4
Mhm.
with just the soundbar, no
Yeah.
rear surrounds or anything.
Yeah.
So
They're relying
I don't know
on
how they get away with that.
reflections. Well, they're relying on a whole lot of reflections,
Yeah.
you know. So
I wish it were true. I wish it were true because that would be pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't know if they're there yet. I mean, Sennheiser they do a lot of stuff with psychoacoustics, right?
Yeah.
So they've been doing stuff
I've
with
got
that.
several of their microphones. I've got several of their headphones. I'm like a pretty diehard Sennheiser fan.
Mhm.
And every time I reach out to them to try and get some review, they're just crickets. They just
Mhm.
ghost me. Nothing.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I don't know what their deal is.
I heard I think it was a Sennheiser, soundbar, one of their it was pretty expensive.
Mhm.
I wasn't that impressed. Now he did have some like vaulted ceiling, so you're not going to get any kind of reflection off
Oh, yeah.
that, but it just wasn't that great. I was
Randall
like,
says-
okay, it's a soundbar.
I'm pretty sure they only have the Ambio. It's just the
Yeah.
Ambio Max and Ambio Plus. That's all they offer as far as soundbars.
Yeah, I don't know what model it was, but
Yeah. Well, I'm
Right.
open to it. Like I said, I'm open to the idea. The only, the sound bars that I think that I can recommend to people are the Sonos ones. Just because they're
Yeah.
tuned pretty well. You know what I mean? Like when I looked at the response, I measured them. I thought they're just going to be all over the place, but it looks like they're trying to go for the right thing. You know,
Mhm.
despite any limitations that the sound bar has with regards to, spaciousness and stereo imaging and all, physical limitations, overall it sounds pretty decent. Like I can imagine somebody getting that and saying, "Oh, I like this." And on top of that, their app and like the wireless streaming, whole home audio,
Right.
they have their ecosystem, which is kind of the bad part, right? So you like this,
Yep.
you like the Sonos Beam, Sonos Arc, whatever it is. Oh, you want to add a sub? There's got to be a Sonos sub. You can't just add any
Mhm.
sub. Are you crazy? That's the tie-in that I don't really love about it. But the tuning on those is pretty good, and I can imagine somebody just enjoying them.
Especially music, because I've actually got, we're still hopefully moving into our new house before Thanksgiving, fingers crossed, but if not, definitely before Christmas.
yeah, congratulations, man.
Thank you. We've been living in this little house that my brother-in-law owns for 10 months now.
Yeah.
So we are ready to move.
And that's the
out of
one that
here.
you did the home theater in the room, right?
In the shed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So yeah, our new home is just a half a mile away from here. So I'll still be going here. I'll be commuting here to go into the shed and
Gotcha.
mess around and do
So
all
that'll
my
be your
stuff there.
studio. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, right now in our little living room, we've got a Sonos Beam and a couple of SL1s behind us, and yeah, it sounds fantastic, especially with music. Sonos has dialed in their stuff for music reproduction so well.
Have you noticed on the Sonos that they make it sound like it's further back than it actually is? Like the soundstage doesn't sound like it's just there. Like it sounds like it's a little bit behind. It's like a cool trick that they do. I don't know exactly how they do it, but it sounds further back. And of course, they try to make it sound wider, which everybody does.
Right.
But they pull it off, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
But still not better than 2 bookshelf speakers and a sub, in my opinion. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about on wall, on ceiling, and I know you've been doing your own experiments, and in your videos I always thank you, thanks for trying it, because that's the tough thing is actually putting in the work and trying it, and then, you can form an opinion based on, your experience. And I always respect that over just kind of theory, because a lot of times people say, well, theoretically it should do this, and this is why they. I'm like, I appreciate that too. That's all good.
Mhm.
But when it comes down to it, trying it and having an idea what, your experience is, I think is important. And I don't think maybe most people can't do that. Maybe they don't have the speakers. They don't want to make holes in the wall, all these things. So, yeah. Can you kind of give us a summary about that experience?
You're still talking to me?
Yeah, you're our guest, man. I talk to these guys all the time. I know. Here's what I know. Aaron,
That's
at the
hilarious,
moment,
dude.
he doesn't really care
That's
too much
funny.
about that stuff. Michael loves his Atmos setup, so he has no complaints. He has no interest in, trying the other thing. So, we've heard from them. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, I was so gung ho about getting that Voice of God channel up straight above me, and although I don't know, it's ever since I reviewed the IOTA AVX17,
Mhm.
that's pretty much been my permanent preamp that's been connected ever since. Every once in a while, I'll throw the SR7015 back on. But yeah, when I tested out like a true RO3D setup for the first time, with the Marantz SR7015, man, I was like, I didn't really get a lot coming out of the Voice of God, or at least that I could really tell. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, I never made a video on that or anything. I just, because I'll eventually revisit RO3D and compare that to Dolby Atmos and DTSX, because I did that a while ago in my old house, but now having like a proper dedicated home theater, I want to do that again. But it's just kind of underwhelmed. Not just with RO3D in general. I'm talking about just the Voice of God.
Me too. Yeah,
'cause
I agree with you.
I just
when it comes
thought
to
it was going to be like a game changer. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something straight above me. It's going to sound so cool. It's like,
Yep. I mean,
but I still like RO3D up mixing. That is still true. But
I'm with
the
you.
only
I'm with you. If I
thing-
lost the Voice of God channel, or if it was disconnected, I'm not sure that I would notice too much. And that's kind of the hint to me that a speaker up there is not the greatest thing. From experience, it's not. If you look, if you're watching this and you're like, you're trying to decide whether you need that, I don't know. I don't know that I'd want to go out of my way. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're just trying to share our experience, so maybe you can save somebody the hassle of Reverend Slim says filling holes, because he's tried lots of different configurations.
Right. Yeah, because that's the only downside about having the IOTA as my main preamp right now, is that it doesn't support RO. So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I definitely like the up mixing for sure. It's interesting. This morning, I was thinking about maybe what's a better way? What's a better way to do this whole immersive thing? Just because, again, I watched that the scene from No Time to Die. It's kind of a scene that I go back to because I've been messing around with different effects and stuff. But I went and watched that. I'm like, there's nothing happening here, right? As far as Atmos, anything like that. There's nothing happening in the height channels. And I understand from Reverend Slim that he said that they only had 2 weeks to make the whole mix. So they didn't have time to do it.
2 weeks?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because I've been watching a lot of these mixers. Like there's channels where these guys who mix in Atmos, they all kind of get together and they talk about, they're just talking shop, right? What they do, their process, things that they have issues with, what translates, what doesn't translate. The one I'm watching is called like Lost in Translation. That's what they call their podcast thing. Kind of cool if you guys are interested. But I guess what I'm thinking is, it's tough when it comes to not having enough time, right? So that movie, it was more a time constraint. But for the end user, it's kind of disappointing, right? If you're excited to watch a movie, you set this whole thing up, you go to watch like, oh, nothing's happening, right? And I think that's when the Oro upmixer can work. But here's the next step further, right? Here's the next step. It kind of makes sense to me. Like, if they don't have time, wouldn't it make sense to have metadata for the space? So let's just say with Dolby Vision, they have metadata, right? That tells you about like, how stuff, the HDR should be mapped, tone mapped. It seems to me that it would make the most sense and like the best use of the bandwidth is to say, you know what, this scene is in this like cave, right? This is what this room should kind of sound like, right? So add these kinds of reverb and reflections for this particular room. Next scene, we're outdoors, choose the outdoor mix, and then, it would just be easy. And then your processor should decode that and make the proper sound for each space. To me, that makes the most sense because people could do it quickly. They could override it if they wanted to, but it would be something like if you only had 2 weeks, you can still get a good experience and it wouldn't take that much data, right? What do you guys think about that? Does that make sense to you guys?
A little bit.
No?
Yeah.
No?
Ealan, did you
I mean,
follow?
yeah, kind of. I mean, it's like it's
Kind of.
it's as if like, there should be some sort of baseline. If you're mixing in Atmos, there should be some sort of baseline like, okay, I've got these plugins, I've got these presets, I'm mixing in Atmos, so I'm just automatically going to be dealing with these presets and these plugins. Because yeah, it shouldn't really matter how many speakers you have. You can have 30 speakers, you can have a 7, mixing on a 7.1.4, post-production facility or something, like, as long as it somehow tells the 4K Blu-ray disc or Netflix or whatever, as long as it tells it to matrix it properly, then we should be getting amazing Atmos mixes every time.
I think the hard part is because we have so many different, like I even did a poll with my audience of like, what type of configuration do you have? 5.1.2, 5.1.4. I couldn't do a bunch because it only allows you so many options, but because everybody has so many different setups, I think it is hard for engineers because they're mixing for, a certain, at least minimum bed layer. Maybe that's a 7.1.2, or I'm sorry, 7.1.4. So if somebody has only 5 speakers on the bed layer and then only 2 speakers up top, it's going to be really difficult to kind of reproduce that, even though the metadata says, okay, we'll just send the, the rear Atmos speakers to the 2 in the middle. Well, I mean, even Chana posted, I think, his video today. He was talking about how you're going to miss that pan from front to back, so,
Right.
and you physically can't do anything about that. So I think for the most part, you're still going to have to, whether it's an Oro setup, whether it's an Atmos setup, whether it's DTSX, you're going to need like a minimum speakers. Then if you've got more speakers, then of course the AVR or processor, it's going to know what to do with those. But I think it's the opposite is where we kind of run into issues, and we don't hear it maybe properly because we just don't have sufficient speakers to make that happen. And I've always tried to tell people when you have 2 Atmos speakers, I kind of equate that to having only 2 front speakers and trying to get surround sound out of it. It's really hard to do that. I mean, you can get an immersive kind of enveloping sound from a pair of speakers, but you can't reproduce only sounds from the back and separate that from sounds from the front with just 2 speakers. It's just physically impossible to do that. And so, so I'm a big proponent of having 4 Atmos speakers. I just don't think it's really difficult to get that proper placement and proper positioning with just 2. And I think I even read somewhere just recently, they were saying If you don't have 4 Atmos speakers, you actually don't have object placement or objects. Is that what?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't use objects. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. I just always assumed that, you know, if it said Atmos on your AVR, then all right, it's sending Atmos objects to each speaker, but that's maybe not the case.
Yeah, I think, what is it? 7.1.2 is like, you can have a static mix, which is 7 bed layer, 2 heights, and nothing. It can all be channel based.
Yeah,
It's when it goes from the 2 heights to the 4, that's when it becomes object.
Yeah.
And even then, I'm not sure that it makes a huge difference. Like if it was all channel based, I wouldn't really have an issue with that,
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, somebody was saying, having the metadata to produce a sound is might not be the best idea because, they'll all sound the same, right? And I guess I was just figuring maybe they should make that easy, right? That should be something that they can easily implement to make the sound good. And I think most of the stuff that's been said here it's not really Atmos's fault because they provide the tools to be able to move stuff around, right? Making it sound realistic and actually using it, that's a whole different thing. But it's kind of tough because they are also promoting it as something that's going to be this immersive sound, and if it's not that, yeah, we can say, hey, if you didn't have enough time, that's the reason why it's not good. But then it's also maybe they don't have enough tools. Maybe they don't have enough tools, and maybe the expectations are too high, right? And that's where I'm trying to kind of just bring down to a realistic level, so when people are spending money on this stuff, they understand, okay, this is what it can and cannot do, and hopefully people will come up with ways to make it better. Because I think a lot of these guys are just assuming that they're making something in Atmos that everybody's just automatically impressed. And I hope they see some of our videos and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, somebody's actually paying attention to see if these are good mixes. Yeah, that's basically it.
I think if it were, because I know people have said, you're not really going to get a true mix or like a true discrete Atmos experience unless you have Storm Audio or Trinnov, because just their processing is just out of this world, and their room correction software is just insanely good. So like, what is it about their processing, about their patents or whatever, that makes it so expensive, for one? And why can't, because I know Elon Musk, for his patents on his batteries, I think he just made them public. So like any car manufacturer can use that same patent to make their batteries as well. So there needs to be more of that, just kind of sharing this technology to Denon, to Marantz, and maybe somehow finding a way to make it cheaper, so that not only just the elite and 0.5% people who actually have a Trinnov can experience that.
Well, this guy has a Trinnov here. This guy here stopped the FOMO.
His is 2-channel though, right?
No, I don't know.
FOMO, let us know if you've got the 16-channel or 32-channel. I knew he had one in his 2-channel setup. But
yeah. He's like, hey, you want to review this?
I heard
I don't know.
His
So what I think your question or your comment was about whether they have different processing in there to make it sound better. And here's my take, right? So I have the Dolby Atmos render opening right now on my M1 MacBook Pro, M1 Max, right? I'm pretty sure those Trinnovs, I don't think they have more processing power than this computer. I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
this is the render, and it gives you all these different options, different ways to down mix and things like that. You can actually change up all these options on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I can use this as my, I don't know. You can just imagine like this is Dolby Atmos, I don't know, decoding or something like that.
Yeah.
So I see all the features there, right? I don't think that these other processors have anything different from Atmos. Maybe a movie theater, that's different, right? Movie theater, that's I'm talking about something separate there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think for these home consumer facing products, the main difference is really the room correction.
Yeah, I think
I
part of
don't
it,
think it's really different from Dolby themselves.
yeah, with things like Storm Audio, there's a lot of customization you can do. If you want to
Yeah.
get into it, if you want to dive into it, it's definitely not, hit start, go grab a cup of coffee, come back, and you're good to go. It's more like, okay, we're going to get into this thing and we're going to manually calibrate it before it even does its calibration. And we're going to try this and try to get it as best we can. And then we're going to run, the 9 positions or 13 positions or whatever. But even then, it still gives you tons of flexibility with going back and making some changes to phase and a lot of that manual adjustments. And, I think Odyssey is coming a long way with being able to now have their paid software that you can buy for like a couple $100. But I still don't think it's like the level of, Dirac Live or Trinnov or maybe even Room Perfect. I haven't had much experience with that, but I've heard a bunch of different home theaters. When I've done several tours, probably at this point, I've heard over 50 home theaters. And of course, I've heard some incredible. One of my favorite home theater tours that I've ever experienced was using an Emotiva processor, the RMC1, I believe. Phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal sounding. I heard another one, probably one of my second, I don't want to say like in order, but basically out of the top 3, another one was using the Emotiva processor. Now that same processor was the buggiest thing I've ever reviewed on my channel, but when it works, it sounds fantastic. And so to me, it's not necessarily about, which model or which brand.
See you, Aaron.
See you, buddy.
Yeah.
Has the best, whatever features. It's a lot. I think probably 90% of that is knowing what you're doing and calibration and proper calibration, because the people that I've heard amazing home theaters from, they really, really, really value calibration. I mean, like they spend a ton of time. I'm more casual with my setup. I'll be honest. I mean, I run Odyssey, do a couple of changes, but I'm not spending like 7.5 hours in there tweaking and adjusting and EQing and taking a measurement of my left. I just don't do that in my system. But these guys do.
Yeah, that's just part of being a reviewer as well. I mean, that's just how things have to work when we're switching things in and out all the time. So yeah, I totally get that, because I'm the same way. I'll just run, room correction software that's built into the AVX17 and then watch something.
Well, I've found that can make a huge difference though, right? So running calibration, doing it all properly can really change the way your system sounds.
Sure.
And it's interesting because I always have a few different presets, right? I want to be able to switch quickly back and forth between no EQ, the default EQ, my method. So I can switch between them, and they sound like different systems. That's how big of a difference it is, they don't sound the same at all, so to me, it's like one of the biggest things that you can do is to calibrate,
Right.
I think it's a huge
So
deal when it comes
then,
to speakers.
so if it comes down to customization and calibrating, then what makes Trinnov so expensive?
I
Part of
think
it is being able to
go ahead.
upgrade down the road, So like with the Marantz, I mean, when you're looking at, all right, prime example, the new, let's say Marantz and Denon have, HDMI 2.1, they have 8K support. Well, if you've got an older unit, well, if you want those features, you just need to buy a new processor or buy a new AVR. Something like a Trinnov. I think most of their stuff is like firmware updated. So you can just kind of download that and install it to get additional features and functionality. Something like a Storm Audio, you can actually send it, or I'm sorry, most of their components are modular. So when you purchase one through a local dealer, the dealer literally, I just found this out yesterday, a local dealer can come to your house, swap out, HDMI board, as long as it's not like the main board, which that I think has to be sent back to the main, manufacturer. But if it's something like a component, they can just swap it out. It's pretty simple. It's definitely modular. So things like that, I think, is maybe it lengthens the lifespan of that product, but it's a pretty high premium for that. And like you said, I mean, that's going to be your 1%ers, 2%ers. I don't know what the number is, but definitely not for everybody. So the vast majority of people are looking for options like the Iota that are very, very affordable. What is that unit? About $1,000?
No, it's more like $2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even
the MC1, the Emotiva MC1, that's $1,000.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking. But even in the grand scheme of things, I mean, all right, so $2,000 is a lot of money. But when you're comparing that to something like even let's look at Marantz. Marantz processors right now are insanely expensive, man. It's like they went up 35% or so. So it's like, holy cow, So even those are getting really expensive. And just 2 years ago, people were saying they were expensive then. So
yeah. So there's some good comments here about Trinnov specifically. So I do believe FOMO has a Trinnov. I don't know how many channels he has. Did he say 16?
FOMO, did you
maybe?
mention that?
So yeah, basically it's a computer, right? And you can do all kinds of stuff, and you can get support.
He has a 20 channel and a 4 channel. Okay, wow. So he's got
you got some big boy stuff.
I think he has the 16 version, and then they just added an ability to add.
So that's kind of a cool thing. Like, here's more channels. Yeah. That's kind of awesome. Yep. I think when it comes down to the room correction, I don't know if this is exactly how it works. It'd be great to have John Heron on from Trinnov.
Yeah.
I should actually reach out to him one time
to
get him on. But here's the way I kind of imagine it working, Ealan, and I don't know if this makes sense to you. Just because I know you do like music stuff, right? Like mixing.
Yeah.
To me, what it seems like it's doing is it's finding all the speakers, right? Because it has their microphone. It can kind of detect the location, the angle. It has a map of the speakers, right? And so if your speakers aren't in the optimal place, right, then it will, they call it remapping, right? So I don't know that it's going to make it sound like that speaker is in the proper place, but here's the way I imagine it. It's kind of like, all right, they map your speakers, right? And then they have an ideal placement for the speakers. Like, here's your size room, and this is where left should come from. It should come from this angle, this direction, right? If you don't have a speaker there, it's going to try to keep that angle correct, right? So let's say if they're playing something left, right? And let's say left is supposed to be, or the sound is supposed to be 45 degrees, but your speaker is at 30 degrees, which is where we normally put left, right? Left and right, 30 degrees. So if they want it to be, the sound's supposed to come from 45 degrees, for example, they will make sure to map that accordingly so that when you hear it, the sound is coming from the correct location. I think, to me, like each speaker becomes its own object, let's just say.
Yeah.
Here's the speaker. It becomes an object, and I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it seems like it would make sense that, let's say, if your left speaker was closer to the center, right, than it's supposed to be, that when they play sound out of that speaker, it shouldn't be left. It should be a little bit of a mix of left and center because that's where the actual speaker is. You see? So to me, that's more just better use of calibration. It's actually just calibration.
Yeah.
I don't think it's so
Yeah.
much that they have a different version of Atmos, something like that. I don't think it's that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be same.
Yeah, because I've heard people mention that. Like, oh, I don't, I think they maybe have a different version. I don't think so. I could be
don't
wrong.
think that's it.
Well, yeah, if I'm going to be spending $17,000 on a preamp, it would be cool if it could actually physically move the speakers for me somehow if they're not in the right position.
Well, like FOMO mentions in the comments, he says that where was it at? He said, I totally need remapping because my speakers aren't perfectly positioned, and so when you look at most of our rooms, unless you have the ability and the luxury to build it from scratch and to plan it out and to put everything exactly where it's supposed to be, we're kind of working with what we've got, which is what I've always tried to encourage people on my channel, is that if you got a bedroom, make it happen, man. Do the best you can with a bedroom.
Yeah.
You got a bonus room, you got a room with a bunch of windows, figure it out, man. It's still going to be better than, your neighbor who doesn't even have a system or doesn't even have anything other than his TV speakers, so just make it work.
We need to try to save 30 G's for a Trinnov. Yeah, no, not me.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to figure out is there a way to kind of do some of that remapping? That's kind of an idea I've been messing around with for a while, is like, can you build some of that into the sound itself? So it's less reliant on the actual speaker placement. Anyway, just some thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll share with you guys soon, but it's something that I'm working on.
I mean, supposedly that's what the HTA9 does, because they can say you can put your 4 satellite speakers anywhere that's convenient, but we'll still calibrate it in a way that it sounds amazing. So,
that's true. I think that is what they were claiming to be able to do.
Yeah. Did you mess around with that? Like, when you reviewed it, Joe, did you put the speakers in just random places and see if it could calibrate it correctly?
Yeah. I didn't do as much as FOMO, because he went and when he reviewed it, he's like blocking the speaker, he's putting it down on the floor, like real weird places, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, straight up like putting something in front of it.
Wow.
I didn't go that far, but I did try it in various rooms, and so very weird configurations for the rear speakers, and I felt like it did a good job of kind of level matching and just the basic stuff that you would expect. But it's still not magic, I think that's the trick. Even with a Trinnov, I've read their manual, and a lot of it is about speaker placement. So if it was true that you could just place them anywhere, well, they wouldn't even bother talking about speaker placement. But the whole part of it is like, where's the optimal place? And so they can only do so much, right? If your speaker's in the wrong place, it can't undo that completely. Yep. So I think that's really it. I think some correction is better than nothing, but physical placement is always number one.
100%. I agree.
Yeah.
Can't undo that. Oh man, too bad Aaron had to leave, because he did have a poll that I wanted to mention.
Oh, pull it up. We can still pull it up.
Let's see.
Community tab. All right, here we go. All right, share. There you go. A little bit for you. That.
There it is. It's off the screen. Yeah, so this is Aaron's community page. He says, for those of you who own passive speakers, what was or is the approximate retail cost for the pair? You can select multiples. So you can't select multiples, but what's interesting is most people are between 1,000 and 5,000, which is higher than I thought.
Wow.
Yeah. Or maybe that's people who watch his channel, right? And that's the other thing. Maybe he's getting them to buy the expensive ones because when he measures them, they're like, anyway. Yeah. I have some expensive ones, but I review speakers, Yeah. I don't know that if I didn't do this, I don't know that I would spend that much. I think for me, realistically, I'd be in the 500 to 1,000, right? That'd be my comfort zone for speakers if I wasn't a reviewer.
Like even for your LCR?
For the pair, right? Cost for the pair? Yeah. Like right now I'm still using the Monolith Encore T6 towers. And those are 700 a pair, 800. They're like very inexpensive for the pair. Like the least expensive that you could probably find for a pair of, good measuring floor standing speakers that can play that deep.
Right.
So what have you spent? Do you know like what the cost of your front pair is?
Well, right now I'm rocking the Aperion Audio Theatris T80s.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're like 1,400, 1,500 each.
Okay, so you're still in that 1,000 to 5,000?
Yeah.
I guess that's a pretty big range too.
Yeah, I would probably say I would be in the 1,000 to 2,000 range.
Okay. What are yours, Michael?
They're like 7.
7 what? For both?
7, yeah.
Okay, 7 Gs for both. So you're on the upper end of you're in this 5,000 plus.
Yeah.
All right.
7 Gs?
3,500 piece. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the pair.
Wow. Yeah. So Chana's probably still in the 1,000 to 5,000 for his.
What's he
has
rocking
some bookshelf
now?
speakers. Focals.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Yeah, true. Those vocals are nice.
Yeah, for a while they had the Martin Logans, and they were pretty expensive. Martin Logan, I forget what model those were. They were the electrostats.
Any questions in the chat? Do you guys have any questions for us? Get this on.
Michael, you've got identical LCR, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's the 212 HTRs from JTR, and then 418s in between those.
Wow. Do you have more subwoofers behind you too?
I don't even have room behind me. Yeah, because my room it's relatively small. It's only 13 wide, 19 deep, but my cabinet is about 4 foot of that 19 foot. So my floor space is only 13 by 15. And then my rear row has the riser and the theater seat.
Right.
So there is a little bit of room on the back left corner. So I could probably put like a single 18 back there. But apart from trying to get better seat to seat, like maybe on my back row or whatever, I don't need additional bass. 418s is more than sufficient. The LCR have dual 12s in them. So 6 12s and 418s is plenty, When I had dual 15s, PB, when I had the PB15 or PB16s, having dual 15-inch drivers, that was a lot of bass in there. They just didn't dig anywhere close to what the JTRs do. They would roll off at about 17 hertz. The JTRs are flat down to like 5 hertz. So yeah, it's crazy.
Aaron, dude, I see you're back. You kind of missed it. We did bring up your poll. What are your thoughts on that? And what was the reason?
Well, I was just going to say, first of all, I'm actually driving to meet a friend right now, so I'm calling and I'm not watching, but I'm listening. Somebody mentioned in the comment that the range was pretty wide, and I agree. But I was really just kind of interested.
You're cutting out a little bit, bro. You're cutting out.
What about now?
Okay, now.
All right, much better. Go ahead, buddy.
All right, sorry about that. All right, so somebody mentioned in the comments that there was a large gap between 1,000 to 5,000 and then 5,000 plus, which, I agree with. The reason that I had made it that way, I was really just kind of curious to see who was in what I would consider like more like the budget side of things. And I would consider budget like maybe $1,000 and below, just kind of grabbing a number out of the air. But then within that $1,000 and below, where's the break for most people? So I was kind of curious about that. But I was surprised to see that so many people are purchasing speakers that I would consider not budget. At least on my channel, I thought the majority of people were purchasing stuff that was under it, which I guess is true. But I just was surprised that
I don't even remember what that percentage was. Maybe 20 something percent, or 1,000 to 5,000.
1,000 to 5,000 is 23%.
Yeah. So I
And
mean,
then-
it's kind of an even split for most of those categories. So I was kind of surprised to see that. I expected less than that for that 1,000 to 5,000 range. I expected the majority of people to be well under that, but that was kind of neat.
Yeah. I would have expected probably, well, either the 500 to 1,000 or 1,000 to 5,000, you know, because that's attainable for most people, even though that's a lot of money. You know, when you're spending $2,000 on a pair of speakers, that's a lot, but it's still attainable. Somebody could save up the money. They can work some overtime. They can sell some speakers, you know, or sell some stuff in their garage that they haven't used in 10 years kind of thing, some tools or whatever. So you can save up that. So that really doesn't surprise me that so many people, 37% of your audience that responded to the poll are in that 1,000 to 5,000 range.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's just interesting to see it put down like that. Also, Joe, you were talking about the like, I don't know which, if it's the Trinnov or if it's the Sony unit, and I apologize if you guys can't hear me because, like I said, I'm driving right
you're
now.
good.
So I know I
Yeah,
got
we
road
got
noise.
you. Yeah,
Okay.
we got you.
The thing I was thinking about though is, God, my mind just went blank. I apologize. I'll come back to that.
It's all
Just
good.
Forget it.
It's all
I'll
good.
interrupt you if I think of it randomly.
Okay.
Well, so here's the thing. Also, regarding the poll, though, is I wonder if it's just different audiences too, right? Because you're reviewing so many speakers, and
Right.
you know, the more expensive ones typically measure better. And I wonder if you're attracting people who are more interested in getting the perfect, you know, their ideal speaker. You know, I know Randall here is saying, Aaron made me buy expensive speakers, now totally broke. Right?
You're welcome.
But so I'm curious. I'm gonna copy and paste your poll here, and I'm gonna use the same exact numbers, and I'm kind of curious to see if I'll get different results, because my channel is more focused on more affordable stuff, what I think is more affordable, right? I always get in trouble for that because people are like, $700 affordable. Yeah, I know. It's all relative.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I would like to see, I'm not saying that Randy should, but Randy, Cheap Audio Man, I would be curious to see what the results would be for him, because his channel really is focused toward, you know, $1,000 and below. I would be curious to know how many of his audience have speakers that are over $1,000. I do remember what I was going to say about the speaker mapping, though, was that, you know, as well as I do, so going back to poor speaker placement, and those processors can't make up for poor speaker placement. And the one area that it really is going to hit you is multiple seats. So when we're talking about this stuff, we're often thinking about, or I do at least, I'm thinking of one seat because I'm more stereocentric. So I think it's worth kind of noting that the majority of people in the home theater audience should also be considering the other seats. So the way that those DSPs are making up for, you know, a non-ideal speaker placement is through level matching and time delay, right? We know that. But the problem comes that as soon as you add somebody else into the room and they're sitting next to you, well, everything is thrown off because that perfect placement is no longer there. So that's something else to maybe consider too. And it might be worthwhile if somebody's going to try to do, like, even if FOMO, I don't know if he considered doing that, just try moving different seats. You know, I don't know if he just did one seated location or multiples or what. But
well, here's the funny thing, Aaron, is I have 4 theater seats, and most of the time it's just me. Most of the time,
I get it.
It's me watching a video. They don't want to watch what I'm watching, so that's the truth. But I keep the 4 seats because it looks cool, right?
I get it.
But so I think it's interesting because you are a car audio guy that, you know, used to, you know, be hardcore into that, and those speakers are in a very weird places, right?
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
like not in the optimal place. So does that kind of remapping make sense though? Like, what would be the best way to have a stereo image that's accurate? So meaning, if something's supposed to be 45 degrees to the left, but your speaker is not 45 degrees, it's like right in front of you, kind of, right? If you're in the driver's seat, right? It's kind of like slightly to the left, but not 45 degrees. What's the best way to approach that so that it sounds correct, like the angle?
Yeah, I mean,
you know, I saw an old video of you doing the Rebecca Pigeon thing, and like you had this
Oh yeah.
things showing the angle, like, the where stuff is supposed to come from. Okay, so how do you do that when you don't have a speaker where it's supposed to be?
I mean, the real truth of it is you can't. So that's when you get into crazy DSP and adding multiple speakers and doing spatial effects and things like that, then it makes it a little bit easier, especially when you've got a center channel to anchor things. But if you're talking about like stereo and you need to be dead in the center of the two speakers, you're not going to make the soundstage, for example, wider than the physical placement of the speaker, other than through reflections, right? So you can maybe do some weird stuff, possibly like turning your speakers completely off axis, facing the reflection point, and adding a secondary like a point source, right? So a point source is anywhere that the sound originates from. And the ideal point source is one speaker that covers 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. That's the ideal speaker, ideal point source. And in car audio, if you want to have a sound on the driver's side sound like it's wider than the driver's side, well, good luck, right? Because you can't really put the speaker any further out than like the A pillar or the door or something like that. So the next best thing you could do is find a speaker that's highly directive, put it in the center of the car, maybe aim it toward where you want it to bounce off of, and have a reflection be that point source.
So like that sound bar.
That's not realistic. Possibly, but see, the thing about the sound bars that bother me when y'all were talking about earlier, and it's always bothered me, is they're not highly directive. Like, we know that low frequencies radiate more widely, more omnidirectional, and then usually, depending on the size of the speaker, let's say anywhere from like 200 to 500 hertz, it's going to start to become more narrow, and then you get like to maybe, let's say, 1 kilohertz, it's more forward firing, and then by about 8 kilohertz, it's pretty much within a cone of like plus or minus maybe 60 degrees or 30 degrees, depending on the tweeter type, right? So as you get higher in frequency, it starts to narrow up, but at the mid-range frequencies, it's still radiating all around that speaker. So I never really understood when people talk about, well, we just do it via reflections. We're going to bounce the sound off this sidewall. Well, no, you're not. It's still going to originate from the drive unit itself, from that little 2-inch mid-range or whatever they're using. It's still going to come from there. Now, the high frequencies may bounce off the side, but those low mid frequencies are coming from that soundbar. And that's what I don't understand about that logic of things. And I played around with those soundbars, and I kind of get it. I mean, to me, they're kind of gimmicky, if I'm being honest. They work to some degree, but I think a lot of it is purely based on psychoacoustics, which is great for them. That's what they say they do. The majority of them, like the old Yamaha, that was huge. You guys remember that thing? It was like 6 or 8 inches tall, and it had like a huge array of like 2 or 1 inch drivers. It was just nuts. That thing was cool, but you can't tell me that it would truly replace a legitimate like home theater with 11 channels of surround sound. It's not going to do that. I don't care what they say, right? Like, it's just not, because the sound originates from that sound bar at the low to mid frequencies for certain. That's not debatable. That is 100% fact.
Precedence.
So yes, exactly. So you're going to hear that sound, and then you're going to hear the reflected sound later. And the other thing too is a lot of those use smaller drivers. So like a 2-inch driver, speed of sound divided by like 2 inches, let's just say that's 6,000. Okay. So it's going to be like 6,000 hertz before it really starts to become pretty focused. So that means you got all the way up to the mid treble, and that sound is not going to be directional, or it's not going to be pointed right at the wall and bouncing off that. So it's going to sound like it's coming from the sound bar. So again, you're left with almost a stereo or a monaural source right in front of you.
Yeah. And
So
Chris Wyndham, you are right. It was Spanish Harlem, by the way.
Spanish Harlem. Yeah.
That is correct. Oh, so would it make sense though? Let's say if you had in a car, of course you don't, but if you had a supporting surround speaker, like a wide speaker to your direct left, I guess you could say,
like in the B pillar almost,
something like that, right? A supporting speaker, kind of like how you're saying the center channel can support the stereo image by just telling you where middle is, at least.
Right.
Would it make sense to kind of do what I was saying earlier, though, is saying, hey, this left speaker is not playing actual left. It's more like center left-ish. And use the other speaker to kind of like, all right, this is like very left. And if you need left, put it somewhere in between both of these. That'll get you the right angle.
Right. So yeah, I see what you're talking about. I've done something similar to that where I put speakers in the B pillars. I've also done where I've put speakers in the headrest right behind each ear and then use that to cancel out the.
You're next
That's
level.
fancy.
That's crazy.
That's fancy.
And so, which one worked best of those two? You there? Oh,
You may have lost him.
Dropped you guys.
yeah, I may have lost him. I'm just kind of curious
Okay.
which one of
There he
those
is.
two
Sorry.
worked. Yeah. Which one of those two worked best, or what worked well and what didn't?
Right. So what I did at one point in time was I put 2 speakers in the headrest, one behind each ear. And this was just me playing around with stuff. And I was trying to go for intraoral crosstalk cancellation, basically. So in car audio, the real issue you have is you're not seated in the center of the car. So you
Right.
lose that true plus minus 30 degrees stereo separation, which means that on the driver's side, that speaker is usually it's like maybe 15 degrees off axis, like to the left. And so that's about the widest the sound is going to be off to the left. But on the right side, it could be like 45 or 60 degrees. So generally speaking, and this is like a decade plus of car audio experience, like what you wind up having is in terms of soundstage with time alignment, with DSP using equalization and levels to match between sides, you can put the vocalist in the center of the car on the dash.
Oh, cut out. You could put the vocalist in the center of the dash.
Oh,
Hopefully he comes back.
Right is
We lost you you can put the vocalist in the center of the dash.
He's
okay,
on his
yeah,
BMX right now.
Yeah, I'm on my BMX right
He's-
now. That's what it is.
He's up on a ramp.
Yeah, sorry. So you can put the vocalist in the center of the dash, and the soundstage on the right is going to sound further than the soundstage on the left. So the best thing you can do on the left is physically like move the pillar out. Like that's all you can do. You can't get wider than where the physical speaker is
Sure.
because there's no reflection to help increase the ambiance from that soundstage on the left.
Yeah.
Right? Because your
Interesting
speaker is
stuff, man.
already against that boundary. Like you can't do
Right.
anything else about it. That's it physically. So yeah, I'm trying to dumb it down a little bit because I keep going in and out.
No,
but that's kind of
we're kind of making fun of
Makes
the headrest idea, like Pontiac Fiero had it back in the day. The Miata had the headrest
so the
speakers.
idea there, the idea what kills your stereo sense of stereo in the car is the left side because okay, so let's say that you're looking dead at a speaker. Let's say it's right in front of you, right? Well, there's no stereo because both ears hear the same sound at the exact same time in the same
Right.
way, right? But when you put a stereo in, because of intraoral crosstalk, that's kind of what gives you that phantom stereo. But as
Gotcha.
you move side to side, one ear starts to hear more of a speaker. So, for example, if you're back on the driver's side of the car, then your left ear, or I'm sorry, your left driver, your left, let's say mid-range, both ears are going to hear that almost the same because that angle is it's not 30 degrees anymore. It's like 15 degrees or maybe 10 degrees.
That makes
Now
sense.
the other speaker on the opposite side of you, that's pretty much your right ear is hearing that completely different than your left ear because your head is blocking so much sound that goes to your left ear. They
Right.
sound completely different. So that's what causes a lot of weird stuff to go on in the car. So to kind of overcome that, what I was trying to do with the left speaker was I was trying to send my right ear the opposite signal that it was hearing from the left speaker via the headrest speaker, and then doing the same thing with the left speaker. I was trying to cancel out so it would give me a sense of bigger soundstage width. Now I'll tell you guys, it worked, but as soon as you moved your head just a tad, I mean, it didn't matter, dude, it was like super small. It changed everything. Your head has to be in a vice for it to work, because as soon as you move your head, all the reflections and the direct sound and everything changes. It goes out the window. You see what I'm saying? So, I say all that to say it's a neat idea, but how feasible is it realistically? I don't know. But there's cars that have those, and then like Dirac has stereo systems or multi-channel audio systems in cars. Those are the ones that I find interesting, and I'd be curious to know how they work because they got like legit engineers on that stuff. I was just playing like with different signal, like left minus right, stuff like that.
Very, very interesting stuff. It's kind of funny that, when it comes to car audio, you're all about that, right? And so it's kind of the same exact conversation that Chana and I were having with the height speaker for Atmos. It's like when there's not a speaker there, right? You can't make it sound like it's there. It's going to be very difficult to do that. And that's all we've been just trying to say is like, if your speaker's here, it plays a direct sound and that tells you where the speaker is. And so it's hard to kind of get around that. And, I think a lot of people are mistaken. They think that you can just make the sound go anywhere if you have enough speakers. Kind of, but not really, It's very
Or
difficult to put
like Dolby
sound where
Atmos hype
speakers are not.
virtualization.
I've been trying that. I've actually been messing around with that. Have you?
No.
Yeah, so I have 5.1 in here, like right here. I have a back speaker. And I just been messing with it, and it has an effect. You may want to check it out. I know you like to experiment. It has an effect, and it's starting to make me think that height is more about a change in the higher frequencies. The change in tonality really tells your brain it's up there. So, like for example, if I watch something with helicopters or an airplane where it's recorded well, where it's recorded with the thing coming overhead.
Yeah.
Even if with no height, my brain kind of just says that's probably up there because of the sound, the tonality of it.
Huh.
So it's very interesting how that works. What if we didn't actually need height speakers? No, you do. So yeah, all the stuff that we're all finding out, I think is really interesting just through experiments. Do you have any experiments that you want to try, Ealan? Any new things that you're kind of like racking your brain with, or something you want to test out?
My next test is going to be SVS sent me out an SB4000, and I requested that one because that's their least expensive one that they have that has XLR inputs and outputs. So I was just going to test out if it really does make a difference if you're rocking RCA or XLR. I mean, with
what's your theory on that? I've got my thoughts.
I mean, I don't know about if it's going to affect the actual sound, but it's, if you do have possible issues with a noisy signal,
sure,
then sure, XLR is the way you got to go. But as far as like having it better sounding using XLR, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then one thing, you'll actually get, I think it's like 3 dB gain with XLR. So you'll at least have more gain to the amplifier in the subwoofer.
Right. So
I'm wondering if it doesn't compensate for that though. If it realizes, hey, you're using XLR, because the standard is supposed to be 10 dB of difference between your LFE channel.
Yeah,
I think it's 10 dB hotter. So I don't think that they do that without compensating for it. I think I remember hearing that they dial it back when it's connected via XLR. I think, I don't know.
My guess is the amplifier doesn't have to work as hard, because we know that you have to double the amplifier's power to gain 3 dB. So if you're gaining 3 dB with XLR, that means the amplifier is not having to provide as much power to get that same volume. And maybe that's totally incorrect. I don't know, but you just have a hotter signal.
So from experience, the great thing about trying things out is like you can speak like from experience. And here, when I just set up this AVR here in this room, I had the NAD. I mentioned this last week. I had the NAD T778 in here. No hiss. Like it was very quiet. And that's my pet peeve is hearing hiss from speakers, especially when it's this close to me. Right? I can reach out and touch the speaker. I don't want to hear any hiss. So I hooked up the Denon though. Same exact system, and next thing you know, I'm like, like I'm hearing a buzz out of the speakers. I'm like, oh my goodness, is this really the amplifier? And I just never noticed because I listen from far away. What is the deal?
Yeah.
And I trace it back down to the fact that anytime I plugged in the RCA to the subwoofer, the buzz would come back, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. It didn't happen on the other AVR, so that would make you think like, oh, okay, something's happening here. And what it actually was my my Thunderbolt dock. I have my computer. I have a bunch of stuff here.
Yeah.
That thing being connected to like the similar power, I was getting some kind of ground loop issue that was only showing up on the Denon.
Yeah.
And so it could be because some of them don't use the ground, right? So if it's not using the
Right.
ground, you won't have the ground loop issue.
Yeah.
But I think that might be something that would just not be an issue at all if you had XLR, right?
Mhm.
Some
True.
thing like that, right?
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of it for sure.
So yeah, that might be interesting. How about you, Michael? Any experiments, anything you're trying out? Any reviews that you got coming
man.
up?
Right now, I'm just trying to get the reviews because I've got a ton. I mean, like literally a ton. So just finished up one today. As soon as we get done with the after show, heading back in the theater room. I'll start on the next one. Try to crank that out. Just keep going, man. Because I've got next Thursday we fly out to the Philippines. So I'll be gone for about 5 days over there. So trying to get as much done before I do that.
So this is that huge, couple of pallets you got, like that video you did a little while back.
So that's part of it. I mean, that's literally just one shipment. So I've got 3 seats from Valencia. I've got the entire system from Klipsch, the reference Premiere 2 with a Pioneer AVR, 9.2 channel AVR with Direct Live. I've got a pair of headphones. I just bought the Apple TV 4K. I'd like to do a video on that.
Oh yeah, the Gen 3 that just came out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't owned an Apple TV literally probably in at least 10 years. So I remember when I first got my theater set up, I had an Apple TV and didn't find a big use for it. The problem I'm having now is I've got an older NVIDIA Shield. I think it's like the 2017 model. And it works great for Plex because I can actually have the Plex server on the NVIDIA Shield because it has internal storage. And I guess the newer ones don't have internal storage anymore. But it's just it's pretty wonky, man. When I watch like Netflix or Hulu, sometimes it works. Sometimes I got to reboot it. And I'm just like, I want to get something that works. And so I think the Apple TV would be a good fit for that. So, and then sometime down the road, I may try like Apple Music. And so that'd be a good, source for that. So, but I've got that in. I've got a OSD subwoofer. Golly, man, there's quite a bit. It's crazy. I've got, So just trying to get through as many of those. Like I said, I just finished up the Heiko speakers. Those were nice. I liked them, but they definitely aren't like my favorite kind of speaker. We were talking earlier about biases, and to me, there just wasn't anything exciting about the speaker. It was just it was cool. It sounded good, but I couldn't get it to image at all. Like I never got a central image. I could move forward, I could move backward in my seat. Usually, like, when you've got a pair of speakers set up, you can lean forward and you'll get this, center image that'll lock in. And that tells you, okay, I either need to tow them in or tow them out. I tried placing them different, widths apart from each other. That didn't fix it. So really nothing I tried really gained me. I mean, I always felt like I was hearing the speakers. Now, could that have been me? Yeah, but I've had plenty of other speakers over the years that had no issues locking in a center image, so, but they're definitely kind of more of I don't necessarily think they're a laid back kind of speaker, but they're definitely not like a lively kind of speaker, which, my ears tend to enjoy more.
Right.
Real quick, let's answer a few questions before we go. I have some starred stuff here. David asked a while back, he says, hey guys, I'm trying to get a question answered. Why are there so many AV receivers, amplifiers, and various players dumping buttons and knobs and making users do everything via the remote app?
Just a sign of the times, really.
Trend. I hope that's not here's the thing. I initially reviewed the SVS sound bass amp, and originally it didn't come with any remote. And that was one of my complaints. I'm like, I need a remote. Like, I want to just quickly change the volume. I don't want to have to go in an app and then change the volume. And so the new version that they have has a remote. So that's the other way around, right? I think that, physical buttons and knobs are always good. So
yeah, me too.
What do you guys think? Yeah, I don't want everything app based.
No, me neither. I like a good remote. Just like you said, just for convenience sake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to be able to just, it's right next to you, grab it. This is my cat, by the way. Hi.
Yeah.
She
I
woke up
see
from her nap.
everything going away. I hope that never happens. Here's another one. Thank you for the super chat. Hector Santana says, I'm looking at getting the Denon X3800H smaller room. Is there value in having 2 RSL speed woofers and 2 bigger subs for 40 hertz signals for rumble? So 2 RSL speed woofers and 2 bigger subs. Anybody have experience with the RSLs? I know that they are pretty small. And then having 2 bigger subs. I mean, I'm all for having more subs personally, if you can do it, and using a mini DSP to kind of balance everything out so that the smaller woofers can play to their max, and then letting the other woofers, kind of take over from there. I mean, that's a good idea. And using the subs to smooth out the bass. Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking to Brad, Home Theater Gamer, I didn't realize that he has a 4 subwoofer setup. He's got two big old subwoofers up front, and then he's got 2 smaller near field behind. So, and he said he demoed the scene in Blade Runner 2049 where he shows up at that orphanage. But before that, like, he gets shot down out of the sky, and then rockets start coming down from like a satellite. But he demoed it to a couple of friends with just the 2 front subwoofers, and they're like, "Oh man, that sounded so great." And then he's like, "Well, wait a minute, let me turn on all 4 subs." And he played it again, and like they were just blown away. They're like, I've never experienced anything like this ever. So,
near field is fun, man. I'll be honest. The first time I heard that and experienced it, it's a different experience, man. And I've heard some guy, there was one guy, I think he had it was either 21 or a 24 inch behind, like a near field. Another gentleman had 3 of his seats. Each one of those have an 18. And it's incredible. Like it's a pretty, amazingly tactile experience. And when it's out, now of course it can be too much, like anything else. It's all about calibration. You can crank it up to the point to where it's totally distracting, or you can dial it in and EQ it to where it's part of the system. And when you get it right, dude, it's an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Chris Wyndham, thank you for the super chat. He says, what about near field ported and boosted at higher frequency? Near field ported?
Yeah. I mean, are you saying you would want to boost it higher? I mean, ideally you're wanting a pretty flat frequency response. So I don't know why you would want to boost your higher frequencies.
Yeah.
In any kind of frequency response.
He says like 60 dB. Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly about the boosting the higher frequency, but I don't see any issue necessarily with using a ported sub for near field.
Right.
We always kind of recommend that if you have ported subs, keep it all ported. And of course the best is having all the same exact sub, right? It's kind of just tough to do a mix of sealed and ported. I do, but I have to do all kinds of stuff to make sure that they work well with each other. And I don't know if most people are going to want to do what I have to do to make that work. I have to use some crazy software to do it properly. 60 hertz. What about near field port? I'm not sure about the boosting part, I guess. Here's the other thing I noticed though. When you do near field, the assumption is that you're going to get a flat response because you're so close and your room's not going to interact. But my experience is not really that. When you're close, the seat itself actually becomes an absorber, and what you actually experience and feel might be 2 different things, because you might feel it, but what you hear might be 2 different things. So you have to measure, right? So whether you boost or cut is going to depend on what actually happens at your seat. Anything else? I think we're pretty much good to go. Anything you guys want to plug? Anything? I guess I should say to follow Ealan's channel. Let's see here.
Oh,
Boom.
that'd be
Oh,
cool.
Yeah, you should follow him because he's really awesome at this YouTube thing. I told him, if we started at the same time, he would surpass me by a lot for sure. It's because he's such a natural at this whole thing. Look at it. You got the
Thumbnails are great,
you got
bro.
the face.
Yeah.
You got the whole thing going on.
I still suck at thumbnails.
Look at that. Makes you want to click. All of them. Click. So yeah, check out his channel, youtube.com/Ealan Osborne. We'll leave a link in the description. But I think that's pretty much it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Reverend Slim says I follow Ealan just for how he says woofer.
Woofer.
Do you say woofer? Subwoofer? Or do you say subwoofer?
Do I?
I don't know. I'm
I
asking.
think I say subwoofer.
See, you say subwoofer?
Woof.
Or
I guess I say woof. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've
Instead of
never
woof?
said that. I love it when people say that, but I've never said that. I say subwoofer.
Woof
Yeah,
versus
when you say
woof.
yeah,
I'll make a video about that.
subwoofer. It just sounds funny, but yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, Ealan, it's always good to have you on. Hopefully next time you might be set up with your crazy mic setup when you're not rushing. And I mean, I asked you to be on this morning because I knew Chana wasn't going to be around. I actually called Chana and I'm like, hey man, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm driving over here. I'm like, oh yeah, you didn't. Yeah. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be on here by myself. But I'm glad that the videos coming out this week are not me with a fake goatee when I was pretending to be Chana for Halloween because I had to see that for a whole week. I'm like, oh, I can't watch this. Yeah. But I will be in the after show. So after show, patreon.com/Daily HiFi if you want to join. And we're just there talking about all kinds of stuff. You can ask us your questions. And we definitely appreciate the support. Look out for our daily videos, which our editor Tim takes care of. So thanks to Tim as usual. Thanks to you guys for being here, the audience. Michael, Ealan, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. What time is it now? It's time to roll. That's what time it is.
8:30.
All righty. All right, guys. I'll see you guys. Anything else you want to say? I'm going to hit the end.
Have a great week,
All
guys.
right. See you. Take care.
See ya.